Hey guys, Tyler here.
In previous videos, I've cataloged various alien species from different Star Trek series that I haven't made full videos on yet. The different Trek shows all have different approaches to their aliens. The original series mixed human-like aliens with rather creative non-humanoid designs. The TNG era shows mostly dabbled in humanoids with forehead makeup, and so on. Enterprise continues the latter tradition, though it does do a better job than some of the previous series, in my opinion, of going into detail about lots of aliens' internal biology.
So, in this video, I'd like to examine the biology of the extant intelligent aliens introduced on screen in Enterprise that I haven't covered before.
The ones I have covered include the Xindi, the Illyrians, and the Rigelians, and I encourage you to check out their videos after you've watched this one.
Before we go any further, I'd like to take a minute to talk to you about a new game featuring a different Starfleet crew, Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown, by Daedalic and GameExcite. Today's video sponsor. Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown is a story-driven survival strategy game with roguelike elements. The game allows players to explore alternate what-if scenarios, letting those decisions shape how Voyager's story should go, even if it diverges from canon. You command the starship Voyager as it's stranded in the Delta Quadrant, manage its crew and resources, make choices, and try to bring the ship and crew back home. You can configure the layout of the ship, assign officers to tasks like away missions, explore vast sectors, scan celestial bodies to find strange anomalies, and test your crew's skills in ship-to-ship combat encounters. And each run can differ, characters might die, and situations will vary, so your choices matter. Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown releases on the 18th of February on PC, PS5, Xbox Series S and X, and Nintendo Switch 2. You can check out the game by clicking on the link in the video description. Now, back to the video.
The Akali are one of the earliest civilizations encountered by the NX-01 crew in, well, civilization. Broadly similar in appearance to humans, save for defined anterior crests on each side of their foreheads. A pre-industrial society at the time of the episode, the Akali are unknowingly infected by an industrial lubricant. That was a little Castlevania mix-up right there. The Akali are unknowingly infected by an industrial lubricant used by the Malurians to mine veridium on the planet. The Malurians, previously mentioned by name in the original series episode The Changeling, are scaly, gray-skinned humanoids. They hail from a non-aligned planet orbiting Epsilon Fornacis A, a G-type subgiant 104 light-years away that is 91% our sun's mass, 2.5 times its radius, and 4.5 times its luminosity. At an average of 13 AU, the primary is also orbited by a K-type dwarf companion with an eccentricity of 0.28. The Malurians inhabit 4 planets in the system. As for Akali itself, star charts and stellar cartography place it around Omega Sagittarii 78 light-years away, but its canonical placement in the Beta Quadrant in nearly the opposite direction of the Sagittarius constellation makes this doubtful in my mind. If it did orbit Omega Sagittarii, that would theoretically give the planet enough time to evolve complex life, as the star is estimated to be 3 billion years old. Its metal content very similar to our sun. It also has 1.5 times our sun's mass, 2.9 times its radius, and 7.1 times its luminosity. There are plenty of G-type stars 78 light-years away in various other constellations, though unfortunately none of them perfectly fit Akali's placement on the map. The Antarans are a humanoid species with distinctive cranial ridges radiating in a V-shape from the center of the bridge of their nose, as well as down the sides of their necks, and they have a spot pattern on their foreheads. They have lifespans that last an additional 60 years beyond that of a human's in the 22nd century. Their sphere of influence includes a colony world near Denobula Triaxa, which has led to much hostility between the two species. The Denobulans launched several particularly brutal military campaigns against the Antarans before the 19th century, with prejudices lasting centuries longer. We don't exactly know where the Antarans' homeworld is located, especially since the real star Antares is a young, hot star, much like myself, located approximately 550 light-years away. And other similarly named systems like the fictitious Beta Antares have never been explicitly correlated with the Antarans, who notably don't have an E in their name anyway. More likely, they hail from a planet orbiting a main sequence star closer to local space, and by the 24th century, some Antarans are seen serving in Starfleet. The RN Sin, depicted in Judgment, are pale-skinned humanoids with a ridge running down their necks, as well as more pronounced ridges on their foreheads. A damaged vessel of theirs is assisted by the NX-01 years after one of their colonies, Raturus, is annexed by the Klingons. The Arconians make first contact with humanity in Dawn, when an Arconian is stranded on a planet with Trip Tucker without a universal translator.
Let's call it a discount Darmok situation.
Arconians appear not to have sweat glands, and in fact, their body's hydration system seems not to even be based on water at all, making them one of a few aliens in Star Trek whose physiology uses a different solvent for biochemical reactions. They drink a brown liquid they call Tarat Ash, though it's unlikely to be any of the prominently proposed alternative solvents like ammonia or liquid methane, as biology based on those would require completely different temperatures and/or pressures from normal M-class conditions. That said, their saliva has healing properties, with Arconians able to eject it as a projectile when hissing, suggesting they may have evolved from snake-like creatures. And their cell structures are not capable of handling rapidly changing temperatures while dehydrated, further pointing towards an inability to regulate their body temperatures the way mammals do.
Guys, can you see why I was looking forward to making the Enterprise Aliens video?
Introduced in Fight or Flight, the Axanar have a very consequential name, which I'll get to in a second. Androgynous humanoids who live on average for 400 years, they are first encountered by humans when the NX-01 assists an Axanar ship that is attacked by another species. The Axanar have green blood, which, as I've discussed before in reference to other species like the Vulcans and Orions, could either be copper-based or even use a protein called chlorocruorin, found in some worms and leeches. The atmosphere aboard their spacecraft even suggests the Axanar prefer a nitrogen-methane atmosphere, both being compounds that are naturally produced by life processes on habitable planets. By the 23rd century, the Axanar system would become the site of the Battle of Axanar, a pivotal battle in a conflict with the Klingons, one with tactics employed by Captain Garth of Izar, as described in TOS episodes like Whom Gods Destroy, as well as in the Star Trek fan film Prelude to Axanar. The planet, later a Federation member, is said to orbit Epsilon Eridani, a K-type dwarf 10 light-years away that is 82% our sun's mass, 74% its radius, and only a third its luminosity. It's also less than 1 billion years old, meaning the Axanar are almost certainly not native to the system, especially since K-type stars, like red dwarfs, are expected to be very volatile in their first billion years, producing flares that could strip planetary atmospheres. Epsilon Eridani is orbited by a Jupiter-mass planet called Epsilon Eridani is orbited by a Jupiter-mass planet called Eger at about 3.5 AU with a very low eccentricity, as well as multiple asteroid belts, the inner of which seems to exist between 1.5 and 2, or possibly 3 to 4 AU. Theoretically, none of these objects should disturb the orbit of a habitable planet, which would orbit closer to the star than Earth does, making Epsilon Eridani a prime target for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence in real life. Cold Front features the Barathans, who have spiked bumps along their foreheads, eyebrows, and chins. A very religious people, a group of Barathans, along with members of Pra-Montu species with a different set of distinct cranial bulges, books passage to observe a protostar when they are infiltrated by the Suliban Silic as part of his operations during the Temporal Cold War. The Caridonites, first name-dropped in Journey to Babel when they join the Federation and later depicted in various episodes of Enterprise and Discovery, hail from the dilithium-rich planet Corridon. Longtime trade partners with the Orions, the Caridonites have a population of 3 billion in the 22nd century and are embroiled in a civil war, different sides of which are backed by the Vulcans and Andorians. The Caridonites are distinguished by facial patterns that form the impression of large scales, and their blood is blue, possibly based on the protein hemocyanin found in many crustaceans crustaceans, mollusks, and cephalopods. Corydon itself orbits the star 54 Orionis, a binary system 28 light-years away. Its primary is a G-type dwarf nearly identical to our Sun in terms of mass, radius, and luminosity, though only 300 or 400 million years in age. It also has a red dwarf companion 15% our Sun's mass, which orbits the primary roughly every 5,156 days with a fairly eccentric orbit. It's for these reasons that the Corydonites are almost certainly, in my opinion, not native to the 54 Orionis system, and indeed, as we see in Discovery, they are adept at colonization, which puts them in good company with lots of other species with centuries of activity on the interstellar stage. 2 Days and 2 Nights introduces an unnamed species with vaguely bat-like features, including large pointed ears and wrinkly pink skin. They have the ability to shapeshift and appear as humanoids of other species and genders, tricking Trip and Malcolm Reed on Risa by taking the shape of 2 beautiful women to lure them in, only to rob them. The Denobulans are, of course, prominently featured throughout Enterprise in the form of Dr. Phlox. Hailing from Denobula, the species inhabits a supercontinent, and their culture has come to embrace close, communal lifestyles. They are also known to be polyamorous, resulting in large extended families and elaborate mating practices. They have prominent facial ridges running down the sides of their foreheads and cheeks, as well as an enlarged brow ridge and high receding hairline. They also have ridges on their backs along their spine. Denobulans have very long tongues, and they have a unique ability to enlarge their faces as an instinct when threatened, much like a pufferfish. They can also display an unusually wide smile. Denobulans require very little sleep, but do hibernate for a few days each year. Their lifespans are quite long, and they once practiced genetic engineering while largely avoiding the negative effects such as those experienced by humanity during the eugenics wars. Denobula itself is part of the Denobula Triaxis star system, suggesting it orbits a trinary star. One system linked with Denobula in reference materials is 44 Boötis, which consists of a G-type primary with a Sun-like mass but 1.6 times its luminosity. The primary is orbited by 2 K-type companions, one also Sun-like in its mass but with 87% the Sun's radius and half its luminosity, as well as another about half the Sun's mass, 2/3 its radius, and 1/4 its luminosity. The 2 K-type dwarfs orbit each other with a period of just over 6 hours, and both orbit the primary roughly every 209 years with a large eccentricity. Unfortunately, this system is only 1.5 billion years old, not enough time to evolve complex life, meaning the Denobulans are almost certainly native to another star system, and in any event, 44 Boötis is located in the opposite quadrant where Denobula is depicted in lots of other canon maps, though it's hard to say what part of the stellar cartography is actually the true source of the error. The Enolians, as seen in Canamar, have ridges on their cheeks and are depicted as a trading civilization. In the episode, Archer and Trip are arrested and sent to an Enolian penal colony, one of numerous Enolian outposts in the region. The Eska encounter the NX-01 crew in Rogue Planet while hunting indigenous life forms, including the shape-shifting, telepathic, slug-like wraiths. They have large, bony, bumpy ridges that proceed up their noses and foreheads, as well as smaller parallel ridges and thicker brows than humans. Ghosts' species is featured in The Communicator. A pre-warp people, their physiology is quite different from humans, even aside from their facial ridges. They each have 1 kidney, extra vertebrae, and blood that is not based on iron. At the time of the episode, when Archer and Reed are trapped on Ghost's planet, his people are divided into at least 2 major political factions, practice the death penalty, and seem to be roughly on par with Earth's mid-20th century. The Akarans are a race native to the Delphic Expanse, distinguished by a vertical ridge extending from their hairline down to the center of their nose, featured in the alternate timeline of the episode E², in the form of one of Archer's descendants. Kago's species, named after a bounty hunter seen in Bounty, has larger than average heads and red and blue markings along the top, as well as a ridge extending down the center of bald spots on their heads and face ridges on each side of their eyes. The Centauri are humanoids with scale-like markings on their heads, hailing from a planet orbiting the G-type star 37 Geminorum, 57 light-years away in the Beta Quadrant, with 1.2 times our Sun's mass, a sun-like radius, and 1.3 times its luminosity. 37 Geminorum is 5.5 billion years old, providing enough time for complex life to evolve, though given the star's much lower metal content than our Sun, I have doubts about the likelihood of an Earth-like planet forming naturally in such a system. In any event, the Centauri are encountered in Oasis when the NX-01 crew helps prepare a Centauri ship that has crashed en route to the colony world Kotara Barath. The Cretaceans are humanoids with an elaborate facial structure, including distinct ridges. They are known for their strict adherence to complex social codes and proper etiquette, leading to a reputation as being easily offended, such as in their first encounter with humanity in Vox Sola. Their homeworld, Cretasa, presumably orbits a G-type star 120 light-years away due to the presence of green vegetation on their planet. Although in star charts it is seemingly erroneously listed as Psi 5 Aurigae, 1/3 the distance, and in actuality the location of the planet Pyrelia. The Lokek are a Delphic expanse species featured in Extinction, known for developing a virus to mutate members of other species into Lokek. This virus has caused an epidemic among at least one species, Tret species, who possesses a thin ridge down the center of their foreheads. Despite being sentient, the Lokek are depicted as being primal and feral, making for a particularly uncomfortable episode. The Lorilians are one of the many species seen in Broken Bow, possessing light forehead ridges and being mainly known for breathing methyl oxide until the age of 4. Their homeworld is said to orbit the binary star Gamma Leporis, 29 light-years away, consisting of an F-type primary and K-type companion separated by about 864 AU. While Gamma Leporis is less than 3 billion years old, given evolution is expected to be accelerated around F-type stars, the Lorilians may or may not be native to the system. Gamma Leporis is estimated to have a mass 1.2 times the Sun's, with 1.3 times its radius and 2.4 times its luminosity, meaning Lorilia could orbit about twice the distance Earth does to receive similar stellar flux. The mink and Valachians, introduced in Dear Doctor, are notable for being two extant humanoid species sharing a homeworld. Not that unusual given Homo sapiens once coexisted with various other intelligent hominids. The episode centers on Phlox's dilemma over whether to help the Valachians avoid extinction, as the mink are expected to naturally replace them by the 24th century, with later productions like Star Trek Into Darkness confirming that by 2259, the mink, despite being considered less evolved by the Valachians, represent the planet diplomatically to the Federation. The two species share features like distinctive facial ridges, with the mink regarded as a subspecies. The planet Velakis is also said to orbit a trinary system consisting of a K-type primary and 2 G-type companions, which could explain the planet's seemingly higher biodiversity. The Nuvians are a race of humanoids with pronounced cranial and brow ridges and 12 fingers on each hand, making it unsurprising that there are, as of the 2150s, apparently over 200 registered Nuvian masseuses on Risa. Regine introduces the Orantaku, a Delphic expanse species nearly identical to humans, save for, presumably among other traits, faint ridges near their eyes and an incredibly complex retinal structure, according to Phlox. And as seen in the episode, at least some Orantaku are telepathic. The Osarians are Delphic expanse aliens encountered in Anomaly when Enterprise disables an Osarian ship and seizes its database while searching for the Xindi weapon. Man, Season 3 really was like 24 in space. The Nakul are a more well-known Enterprise alien species, notable for being a faction in the Temporal Cold War, as depicted in Stormfront. Vehemently opposed to the Temporal Cord, a group of 29th century Nakul temporarily alters Earth's history. At one point, the Nakul have attempted to eradicate the Suliban, and they were nearly defeated by Daniel's faction before Daniels sent the NX-01 crew to finish the job. Physically, the Nakul have pale gray skin, bony faces, bright red eyes, and yellowish-brown blood. The Paragons are a matriarchal species who operate a mining colony on Paragon 2 that is destroyed by the Suliban and Shockwave. According to star charts, the system's primary is an M-type star, though it's unknown if any of the planets are tidally locked. The Retalians are humanoids with several ridged sections on their faces, introduced in Precious Cargo when they attack a Cryosian transport. The Skagarans are human-like aliens with distinctive protrusions above each eyebrow, on their throats, and in front of each ear. As detailed in North Star, a group of Skagarans abducted a group of humans in the 19th century to serve as slave labor on a colony planet in the Delphic Expanse before the slaves rose up, murdering their masters and subjugating their descendants. The Sphere Builders are transdimensional aliens who are also a major faction in the Temporal Cold War. Possessing yellowish, hairless skin and pale blue eyes, in the 12th century, they built a network of spheres to generate spatial anomalies in an attempt to reconfigure space to suit their needs in preparation for colonization. This region would go on to become the Delphic Expanse, with reconfigured space becoming hazardous to all existing life forms. Using their ability to examine possible timelines, the Sphere Builders discover their invasion is destined to be thwarted by the Federation in the 26th century, leading them to make first contact with the Xindi following their civil war. They convince the Xindi humanity will be responsible for their extinction, setting into motion the events of Season 3. They are also worshipped by at least one species, the Trianons, who possess a faint nasal ridge and hail from a world in the Muratus star cluster, not Mutara. Almost messed that one up for the third time, as seen in Chosen Realm. The Suliban, who I've mentioned plenty of times already, are a nomadic people formerly hailing from a red dwarf system. Members of the Suliban Cabal are given extensive genetic enhancements by a mysterious benefactor from the 28th century, including increased flexibility, the ability to cling onto walls and ceilings, alter the color and texture of their skin for camouflage, compound retinas for enhanced vision, and the ability to process different atmospheres, including tolerating a vacuum. Their homeworld became uninhabitable in the 1850s, with some settling in the Tandar sector and becoming assimilated into the local populace. The Takret are militaristic humanoids with faint cheek ridges and a unique digestive system who encountered the NX-01 while searching for deserting soldiers in The Catwalk. Tarkelians, long mentioned throughout the franchise, are first depicted on screen in Season 2, including when some are assimilated by Borg nanoprobes left over from the events of Star Trek First Contact. They are distinguished by a series of ridges along their faces and necks. Tarquin is a horned humanoid of an unnamed species who was exiled in the 18th century for his telepathic abilities, as depicted in Exile. Members of Tessix species, who possess 3 protruding cranial forehead ridges, operate a deuterium mining colony on a planet that is frequently extorted by the Klingons, as seen in Marauders. The Varadians are another species who inhabit the Delphic Expanse, introduced in the form of the chemist Barat Ood, who sells the NX-01 crew a formula for synthesizing trellium. The Visians, humanoids with crescent-shaped ridges around their eyes, are notable for having a third gender called cogenitors, who provide an enzyme during the reproduction process, but are otherwise treated almost as pets, despite showing equal, if not superior, intellectual abilities. The Zarantine are stocky, yellowish-skinned humanoids with flat noses and spotted patterns on their faces who hail from a planet near Klingon space. Their homeworld is said to orbit the A-type star Zeta Leporis, which has 1.5 times our sun's mass and radius and is 14 times its luminosity, but is only 231 million years old, meaning the Zarantine are almost certainly not native to the system. Furthermore, the system has what is perhaps the first confirmed extrasolar asteroid belt, extending from 2.2 AU all the way through the habitable zone, making naturally occurring habitable planets further unlikely. These Aurelians are, in my opinion, one of the most interesting species introduced in Enterprise, and part of the reason I wanted to make this video series in the first place. Peaceful humanoids with scaly orange-brown skin, they can pass electricity via tactile contact, which they incorporate into their reproduction process, as discovered by Trip when he is accidentally impregnated in Unexpected. There are, of course, several species of animal on Earth where the male carries offspring to term, such as seahorses. In the episode, males are said to merely be hosts, with offspring only containing genetic material from the mother, though chromosomally, this would only result in female offspring, meaning Xyrillian males may reproduce via an alternative method. Xyrillians are also adapted to a unique environment with differences in pressure and atmospheric composition that cause a hallucinogenic effect in most species. These Xyrillians are described as reptilian, though Trip develops 2 nipples on his wrist as a result of his impregnation, meaning the creatures Xyrillians evolved from would, like the Cardassians, likely have possessed traits from both reptiles and mammals. And technologically, these Xyrillians are superior to humans in the 22nd century, already possessing advanced stealth systems, as well as holographic technology reminiscent of holodecks. Their homeworld is said to orbit a binary system consisting of an A-type and F-type star, making it questionable whether they're native to the system, though their environment would probably be hard to find on many planets. Indeed, they would likely possess genetic adaptations to deal with excess radiation from these hotter stars, which would promote faster evolution and would explain these Xyrillians' skin pigmentation, given plants around F-type stars are expected to reflect more orange and yellow light. Zajad is a merchant who owns a shop on a planet visited by the NX-01 crew in Regine, distinguished by his pale skin, enlarged cranium, and prominent bulbous protrusions on his forehead, cheeks, and chin. And Zobral's species, featured in Desert Crossing, resembles humans and makes first contact with humanity when the NX-01 becomes involved in a class conflict on a desert planet orbiting an A-type star close to Risa, 90 light-years from Earth.
With that, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below and don't forget to share it. That stuff really helps me out. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do that as well so you won't miss future uploads, and click the bell icon to receive all notifications. If you want to support my work even further, you can become a patron at patreon.com/OrangeRiver, link in the description, or become a YouTube member by clicking the join button on my channel page. I just want to give a quick shout out to all of my donors who allow me to bring on outside talent like editors to make more high quality content for you to enjoy. By becoming a patron or member, you also get access to awesome perks like behind the scenes photos and videos, patron and member only polls, name of the credits, merch discounts, and more. Or you can drop a one-time super thanks or PayPal donation. All are appreciated. Links to my PayPal as well as my social media and merch store are in the description too. Also, just as a reminder, I do have a second channel where I've uploaded lots of the VODs of my gaming streams, with more on the way. And in addition to some other goofy one-offs and extra behind-the-scenes material, I've officially made it my second streaming platform, so be sure to subscribe there as well so you don't miss any new content. That's all I have for this week. Live long and prosper. Do you like merchandise? If so, head on over to the new and improved OrangeRiver merch store. That's right, OrangeRiver is now officially on Spreadshop. I've got a bunch of awesome new designs, including All the Way Down,
All the Way,
Vape God, Tally, aka Best Girl,
it was totally worth it.
and what is perhaps my greatest design yet,
I love being married to my husband.
Plus, I've got some of my classic designs like OrangeRiver Arrowhead, N7, and more. And there are even some new products like OrangeRiver hats. That's right, OrangeRiver hats now exist. Visit the link in the description to get discounts and other special deals on items from my store.